Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Moments with MindLeaps. My name is Rebecca Davis, and I'm the founder and executive director of MindLeaps. And I think everyone knows that Fridays are my favorite day when I get to speak with amazing researchers, dancers, artists, amazing people all over the world, and hear them reflect on what's happening today, how to understand our world, and also to hear about what they're doing to build communities. And last week, when we had the chance to listen to Lamar Baylor speak with the amazing Danny G, I get to be back this week with Julia Sawatzky. Hi, Julia. How are you?
Hi, I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Really good, thank you. I was just saying to our audience how pleased we are to be back with you this week. Last week, our wonderful Lamar Baylor was standing in for me, and we had the chance to hear from Danny G, who runs Summer Stage in New York. And now this week, our audience is in for a special treat with Julia Sawatzky. Julia has this incredible career that she's building and still building that combines an amazing academic experience with including a Rhodes Scholar, and is studying public health, but also has this deep background in the arts and has lived around the world as a Canadian, but also living in Japan, Germany, America, and then throw in a couple of experiences in Africa, and here you go, the incredible Julia. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. So excited to be here.
Julia, I think what's kind of at the front of all of our minds right now is COVID, especially in some of the developed countries, where in my country, in the United States, we're really sad to be seeing this spike in cases every day. I think you're in the UK right now. I know the UK is also struggling, and really the whole world has seen and has felt this pandemic. I wonder, with your studies in public health, how it's affected your studies and everything right now, what thoughts can you share with us on your views of COVID and the pandemic?
Yeah, so I have felt quite lucky with my timing over the course of the pandemic. So when things really started to shut down in the first wave in March, I was completing a first master's degree in epidemiology. And then as we've kind of hit the second wave, I'm now doing another master's degree in public policy. So with epidemiology and policy kind of being the cornerstones of public health, which have really, really been illuminated in the course of the pandemic, I feel fortunate that these degrees have really been giving me the tools kind of in real time to see COVID as this living, breathing case study of why we need public health, what our shortcomings are in public health, and where the challenges and opportunities are going forward. So yeah, I'm in the UK at the moment. So also we're experiencing a massive spike in cases. We're in our second national lockdown, and it feels scary to kind of feel the enormity of that second wave, recognizing the suffering that accompanies it, the way it's stressing our healthcare system. And I can definitely relate, to people all over the world who are feeling this second panic. And I think what that's teaching us in a lot of ways in this current moment, because we had the initial panic, and then there was a sense of relief and control over the summer as the first wave waned, and this second wave is kind of that recognition that we didn't have it under control, and we didn't know everything, we didn't know enough, we didn't act enough, and we have to double down on our efforts. We have to have the tenacity, the grit to come back at it. And I think, yeah, it's a very special global moment to think about our collective learning and how we face this challenge that is coming back at us, and providing so many more opportunities to learn, honestly, than we want. We would love to have it under control, but we're being forced to grapple with it. And I think it's a call to action, for a lot of people. So yeah.
I think the way you articulate the second wave or the second lockdown, I mean, I've heard some people call it recently the fourth wave, but this particular period that we're talking about is really insightful, because coming from New York, people are also kind of trying to understand, but we thought, like we were saying, like, we're heroes now, we fought it, like we overcame it. And then it's also kind of this emotional toll of recognizing that when we thought we succeeded or we reached that finish line, actually the finish line is going to be much further away. And how you kind of comment on the fact that it's not just kind of the course of the pandemic and what the virus does, but it's also how we emotionally deal with those recognitions. I think is, yeah, really well put. I wonder, as it's like just incredible how your degrees are absolutely in line with the course of the world right now. But also speaking from knowing Julia on a little bit more personally, how happy I am. It's hard to say happy in these times, but how happy I am to hear these degrees that you're pursuing, because you're one of the smartest minds that MindLeaps has had the chance to interact with, and certainly me personally. And when you see somebody who has this kind of compassion and sensitivity to people at all levels of social classes and economic classes, and then going after it to get the theory and the knowledge, and then also the public policy part of it, which is like the systemic change that it needs, all into like a brilliant brain, makes me like very optimistic for the future.
Thank you.
I can't help but say it because it's really the way I think about it. But Julia, anyways, to get to a question for you, and not just my my thankfulness of your presence in the world. Tell me a little bit about how you ended up choosing these different parts of your academic path, because you were rising up in Canada through all of your studies, and then had all of these scholarship opportunities, and then of course the Rhodes, and then even within that, like, such diverse interests. How did you end up narrowing on this? I don't think it was just because of COVID.
Yeah, so it's been a long, windy road, in the best possible way. So I started my kind of academic journey after high school, and I went pretty much right after high school. I knew that I wanted to get into medicine, and so I did an undergraduate degree program at the University of St. Andrews, which allowed me to do direct entry medicine. And I've talked about this a lot in my time with MindLeaps, but a lot of what led me into medicine was dance, and I am a huge believer in the overlaps, because I was dancing so much in high school, and those were the things that brought me to kind of the two prongs of my passion in medicine, being a passion for understanding the human body and my own as a dancer, but then also everybody else's, and that kind of commonality of physical experience. But then also what dance taught me about expression and emotion and the human experience, which is actually so intrinsic and innate to the practice of medicine. As you stand at someone's bedside, or also at public health, when you look at a collective experience, there's something that dancers tend to know in a very special way. So that led me to medicine, and then I did my 3 years of medicine as undergraduate degree, and then I got a really interesting fellowship from the University of St. Andrews, which was an opportunity to study public health kind of around the world and to get a global perspective. And that's when I first reached out to you, Rebecca. I sent you a cold email, and I just kind of saw that opportunity come back to dance, and dance with a particular view to understand how it influences health, well-being, and development more broadly. And that year was, and then the time that I spent in Guinea as part of that, was extremely formative in why I decided to study public health. And I think the main thing about it, to kind of distill it to a single point, was just the zooming out and looking not just at medicine and the body as physiology, or even, you know, as one person, but seeing through those experiences the complexity of the systems and the structures that influence health and well-being. And that there was just so much more to it that I wanted to learn about, that I wanted to address, that I wanted to be part of, both locally and globally. So then after that year, I went back to Canada, and I did my first 2 years of a medical degree, now kind of honing in on becoming a medical doctor at the University of Alberta. But again, got, kind of pulled by this interest to look more broadly and pursue something that would help me understand those systems and structures. And that was how I applied for the Rhodes Scholarship, which was a very exciting process and led me here to Oxford. And then I, from there, honed in on the degrees epidemiology, to kind of try and understand the research side of how we know what the major challenges in global health are, which was eye-opening in a lot of ways, having done so much experientially, having been out in the field and kind of experienced and seen some of the challenges, and then to see, okay, so how do researchers quantify those things? How do we know what our global health priorities are? And then I was studying the research, I was doing it, and I was inspired to apply for my current master's in public policy because I loved learning how we know what we know. But then the final piece for me, which it kind of brings together the whole path, is what do we do with what we know, and how do we make it the way that the world is and the way that our societies are? How do we take all the research, all the priorities, all the lived experience, and channel it into change? So yeah, sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but that's how I'm here.
Sometimes I forget to ask you questions and I just sit and listen to like all of these interesting stories and words. But one of the things that I've heard you say a couple of times now in this particular conversation is, first you talked about collective learning when we were talking about COVID, and then I heard you talk about collective understanding when we talked about dance, and then I heard you talk about like zooming out when you're trying to look at how do we actually affect like systems and policies to take action on what we're learning and what we quantify. And I wonder if you would guess for us, I'm not sure that you would know, but guess for us, like, what do you think is it from your experiences that allows you to kind of take that larger step to be able to take the bird's eye view of what you've also experienced, like at the field level and at the ground level?
So I think one of the kind of transferable skills from my time in the field to where I am now, and kind of, I mean, sitting in Oxford, kind of reading about the world through my studies feels so zoomed out, like as far back as I've ever kind of been. But just has been the experiences listening to other people with really diverse experiences and views. So it's through those experiences. So for example, in Guinea, that was one of the most incredibly eye-opening experiences to just chat with people about such a diverse range of issues, because I was also talking to people in different departments of government, to dancers, to community members, and that recognition that people's experiences and views could be so different from mine is what allows me now, when I'm kind of looking at bigger picture things, to realize that there's so much difference to it, so much nuance, so much broader experience to understand. And that's what necessitates that zoomed out view, but also kind of allows one to take it in, to recognize that there's so much there, so much experience to be captured and seen and understood.
Yeah, it's interesting. At MindLeaps these days, we're talking a lot about like our new phrase is like building communities, right? But it's exactly what you say here. It's like, do we take the time to actually sit and listen to people who have all of these different views about maybe what we thought was the same thing, or what we thought was like really something singular? And one of my newest experiences with that with MindLeaps that I see some of our friends from North Macedonia joining is working in Skopje with our communities, from youth from who are North Macedonian and youth who are Albanian, all living together in this country, and how they keep teaching me, like, actually, this is a lot more complicated than you understand, Rebecca. And yeah, trying to take like that step back, that bird's eye view to make sense of it in my mind. I think, yeah, it's a key step to building communities and putting those pieces together. Julia, you commented and alluded to how dance has also influenced your thinking. And I would be remiss to have a Moments with MindLeaps interview and not ask you more about dance. I'm sure you've told me at some point, but remind me, how did your connection to dance start in your early life before you started to piece it together to look at public health and global policy?
Absolutely. So I started dancing when I was 12 years old. So a little bit old for compared to a lot of girls who start in tutus. I think my mom is watching this Instagram live. So hi, mom. She was really adamant that, you know, she wanted me to choose hobbies and interests that I was really passionate about and really wanted to do. And so it was a long time of begging for her to let me do ballet before she said, all right, let's do it. Let's go all in. And then I think because when I first got into a ballet studio, I was like just on fire with passion to do ballet. It really just kind of snowballed. There's my mom. Hi, she says hello. Um, Thanks for letting me do ballet. That's how I got here. Oh, hi, Bashir.
Amazing girl.
um, yeah, and so then from there on, it was kind of I danced all through middle school, high school, and started to get a lot more serious about it. I did finish my training at the School of Alberta Ballet in Calgary in their professional division, which, yeah, was even though I didn't end up actually doing dance professionally, it was so transformative having the opportunity to just commit myself to it. And I mean, it continues to be part of my story today, so I think that's pretty cool.
And it's also one of the things that you mentioned that you sent me an email, and that's how you ended up getting connected to MindLeaps and coming to the field with us. And of course, it's one of the things that stood out when we read, oh, wait, this, like, here's this young girl who's pursuing this incredible, like, academic career, but she's also a dancer. And then that helped us connect and learn a way to bring you to the field. First in Guinea, West Africa, and then later in Rwanda in East Africa. I know that that's just been a small part of your international travels, but maybe if you wouldn't mind sharing with us either a story or a memory that stands out from one of those experiences that you had with MindLeaps.
Absolutely. There are countless, but two that really stick out to me. So my first experience with MindLeaps was in Conakry, Guinea. And it was a really special time. The energy at the center was really incredible because it had just opened and was kind of just getting up and running. So there was so much enthusiasm and also the kind of like curiosity that comes from something being quite new, where we, you know, everyone was asking questions. How is this going to work? How is this going to happen? And it's quite a creative moment, I think, to be in that space with people. But one of this
Very chaotic is, I think, the word I was going to choose.
Potato, potato. No, it was wonderful. It was such an energizing time. And some of the things I remember, I mean, I got to dance with the MindLeaps students a lot that summer, which was a really kind of grounding way to understand the work that MindLeaps was doing. But one of my special experiences from that summer actually was getting to know the French teacher. So he was actually the English teacher for the program, Mr. Doumbouya. And we developed a really great relationship because he was translating for me nonstop from English to French, French to English. He and also other languages in Guinea when he was talking to the children. So we kind of became like this partnership, but he was teaching me French. We were doing French lessons on the side. He was my very first ever French teacher. But he was also teaching me kind of culturally about Guinea all the time. He was teaching me about the kids and their lives. He was teaching me how to function in Guinea, how to make the most of that experience. And kind of the reason that I bring that up is because I think now, having reflected on it over the course of the last 3 years, I think that the relationship I had with Mr. Doumbouya, as he took me through every piece of the work that I was doing in Guinea, was kind of about something bigger. And it was about like the language that we use all the time to communicate with people. And so he and I still keep in touch, and I am still learning French. I'm still working really hard to learn French. But my experience in Guinea just kind of drove that home to me in so many different ways, that our written communication, our oral communication are really central to how we experience the world. Our cultural understanding and the people who teach us that cultural understanding are like critical teachers. And so it's just kind of helped me seek out different ways to connect with the world linguistically, but also culturally. And it's just a really special memory for me. The time I spent there learning French, but also learning about Guinea through the eyes of someone who really, in multiple senses of the word, spoke the languages that were spoken there. And then my other memory I will bring up just briefly was my time I spent in Rwanda, which was the following summer 2018. And there, the most special thing was living in a house with all of the other dancers. It was the Train the Trainers program in Rwanda. So these trainers had come from all over, from Kenya, Uganda, Guinea, Congo, and the US as well. And we were living all in this one house. And I think, I mean, it's a similar message, right? That you can connect over so many differences and different languages. Not all of us spoke the same language, but there was just like this sense of community and this like willingness to teach each other. Again, I think it just comes back to this like the kind of like teaching that people do informally when they're trying to show you their world. That has been some of my most special moments from MindLeaps. People showing me how they like to cook their chapati and where they like to go on the weekends in Kigali. And yeah, it's those little pieces from people who really wanted me to understand where they're from that have so shaped my experiences with MindLeaps.
And Julia, thank you so much for sharing both of those stories. And yeah, this cultural understanding piece, I mean, now it's kind of like, you know, this catchphrase, cultural understanding, but the way you describe it is like really like the power of it is when it's also happening through like osmosis and like this organic way where you're experiencing it and somebody's helping you to like make sense of this world that seems very unusual to you. And it also ties back to these themes of like the collective, right? Like how something is then becomes a common experience with people who are so different, and then that like deeper understanding is developed. Yeah, it's like beautiful, beautiful memories, and really, yeah, very, very, very thoughtful insofar as it's not just what you did in the studio and then you check the box. It's all of that other learning that happens. So Julia, so we've talked about this like incredible academic career and how you're going to be our hero to save us in global health going forward. Just putting a little bit of pressure on your shoulders. And also how these travels around the world have impacted you and how you think about things. I wonder, like, for the people who are coming up, I mean, you're so young, but this next generation, especially now as they start to see how something so international is building new challenges for us, how would you guide these youth who are interested in all of these different things, who want to have this like deep theoretical understanding, but then also have this drive to do what you're talking about? Like, how do you actually act on this information to change something? Any words of advice or things that you think this next generation might want to know?
So I think a few things come to mind. The first is definitely, I think, before we're going to change anything, and maybe this is cliche advice, but we have to be willing to listen to each other, to the planet as we face our next global challenges, to whoever's speaking, to whoever is experiencing what's going on. We have to be able to listen and to kind of integrate information, to collect, again, it's that experience of the collective, to look outside of ourselves and understand who's being impacted, what are the challenges. And I think sometimes like what gives us drive is like this impatience to act, and it's a beautiful thing, and you have to hold on to that impatience, but you also have to be open to those moments of taking a breath, stepping back and listening to the people around you who can guide you and show you what the problems are, and make sure that you use that impatience and that energy and drive in a productive way to do the next best thing and the next right thing. So that's one piece, I think. And then the other piece, and this is always hard, but it is just the courage to take the opportunities that come your way, and to jump at things. I think one thing that I always come back to when I talk to you, Rebecca, is that cold email you know, just emailing you off the website and thinking, well, she doesn't know me, and, you know, maybe this will go nowhere, but I really want to do this work. So I'm going to email this person. And I actually just emailed someone today, or actually emailed them a few days ago, and kind of thought they would never get back to me. It was kind of a long shot. And I got an email back right before this. And it was, again, kind of a similar thing where I want to learn more about their work, and I have the energy and the skills. And I think, like, that has always served me well, and I mean, it hasn't always served me well, as in it doesn't always work out, but it's always helped me move forward, to send those emails, take that chance, connect with that person. And, like, you know, that's where things come from. And if you have that courage to take the leap and introduce yourself, then you're one step closer to making a connection, building a coalition with people, and taking steps towards the things that you care about. Yeah, so that would be the other piece.
This idea of, like, the courage and, like, having the initiative to introduce yourself to people is something that some of our guests have said exactly about the dance world. Like, if you're trying to actually, like, get the job or get seen by, like, this person who's casting, it's the same thing. It's like, actually, do you have the courage to, like, not only take the dance class and have the skills, but actually, like, step up afterwards and say, this is who I am, and this is why I'm skilled. So totally universally applicable advice. The piece of it that I take away, maybe for myself, getting the chance to learn from you today, Julia, is also this idea of, like, can we be impatient because we need to be impatient to drive change, but can we also, you know, take this breath to take the next right step forward? People are always talking, let's move forward, but we're not moving forward unless we take the right step forward. And this is, like, really just, like, something I needed to hear today, Julia. Very powerful. Thank you. Julia, thank you so much for spending this time with us. I wish I could talk to you for, like, 4 or 5 more hours, but you're in the UK, and that would be very selfish of me. Julia, thank you so much. You've done so much for MindLeaps, but we're more than anything, like, just excited to see all of the contributions that you will continue to make to our world. We're lucky to be on the planet at the same time.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, and for all that you do with MindLeaps. It's so inspiring to be on the planet while you're doing all that you do. So very much enjoyed connecting with you today.
Thanks so much, and thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye, everybody.